All righty, welcome back to another episode of Two Plane Sports. Today is Wednesday, November 23rd, day before Thanksgiving, last game week, at least last regular season game week for the Sooners of the 2022 season. Hard to believe that we're this far already. We're just about done, and then the countdown's going to be on until next year. So today's video, we're going to be talking Texas Tech. We're going to preview that. And then we're also going to be talking recruiting. OU's picked up a couple commits recently. There could be another one quickly approaching on this timeline. You know, it might not even be out by the time this video is out or by the time you're seeing this. And then we're going to be talking a few other recruiting things. And then since it's going to be Thanksgiving, we're not going to have a Friday video, and we're going to go ahead and do our bets as if this is a Friday video. So we're going to go through, and I think Jose and I each have 8 bets. So go through, and that'll be our last regular season. We'll have to figure something out for bowl season. We might have to throw in sprinkle a few in there and figure that one out. So a jam-packed show, a lot of stuff to be talking about. But before we get into it, just want to say we appreciate it. We crossed over that 5,200 subscriber mark. It took like 3 months, but we appreciate it. We're over the 5,200 mark. If you're new here, if you've been here a handful of times, hit the subscribe button, turn the notification bell on, like the video, comment on the video, whether you're commenting as you're watching it or you stay around for Jose's in-video challenge. Be sure to do that, and then follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Apple, and Spotify. When you go and follow on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, you're going to get more of an instant reaction or more of a up-to-date real-time reactions and tweets and things like that. So be sure to do that, so whenever these videos come out, you're not totally shocked. So we'll get into it. We'll talk recruiting first because people love recruiting, and we also like talking about recruiting a lot too. So OU ended up picking up 2 commits earlier this week, and the first one that committed was Ashton Sanders, 2023 3-star offensive lineman, 6'1", 270-pound guy from Los Angeles, California. He picked OU over Cal, Wisconsin. He was once committed to Cal, Arizona State, Colorado, a handful of other schools. Ended up being offered by Oklahoma on October 31st on Halloween, and then quickly scheduled his official visit on November 19th, flew out for the Bedlam game, and committed before he even left. And I'm sure you've seen the article, Jose, but he basically came in and said, I had the mindset coming into Oklahoma that I was going to commit. I just needed to check a few boxes. What do you think about Sanders? I think he's severely underrated. Granted, I know I'm biased because he's now part of this 2023 class, but what do you think?
Yeah, I think he's definitely going to be important to this defensive line unit. He's probably going to be the biggest or maybe the second biggest guy, just weight wise, on the defensive line. Him and Alton Tarber are flirting with that 300-pound mark. I think Alton in his profile said he was like 305, and Ashton's profile on 247 says he's 300. So I mean, coming into school, potentially they're going to, both of them are going to be big boys. I don't see him being a huge impact player year one, because as we've seen, I know last year when we were doing all this recruiting talk, we were saying like there's always this possibility that these freshmen can be impact players coming into year one. Not that they can't be, but clearly from what Brent Venables and this staff is trying to achieve, if you work your tail off and you do earn that time, they'll give it to you. But for the most part, with what they seek in the player themselves, it takes a lot of work to get there. I mean, really, the recruit that people were excited for the most was Jaron Kanik. I think that's probably unanimous, right? Maybe Gentry Williams as well, because he's from Oklahoma, but Jaron Kanik was right up there. He didn't really get to play much. And I don't think that is in any way an indictment on him as a player or his talent. That's just clearly how complicated this defensive scheme can be on a linebacker. And on the defensive line, we only saw one guy really get any impact, any time throughout the year. As we got further into the year, we started seeing Grayson Halton a little bit, but not a ton. I think that could be a position that Ashton is in, assuming that that he can somehow surpass Alton on the depth chart because they're similar guys. If he can, I would probably assume that he's going to be the nose guard with his size. Pretty explosive guy. Linebackers are going to be a little bit better next year, hopefully, with Danny Stutzman returning and him being able to lead that linebacker group next year. It'll be the communication will be there because as we saw in the last game, when those linebackers are communicating well amongst each other and the defensive line, it goes very well for the defense as a unit. Definitely has upside, like you said. I don't know if he's underrated because there are a lot of very talented defensive linemen in this 23 cycle, but he's definitely going to be a guy that the coaches would like to have to see at least year 2, year 3 at Oklahoma.
Definitely. And you brought up a good point. On his 247 profile up top, it said 6'1", 270, but we're scrolling down the page, it says 6'3", 295. So exactly how much he weighs and what his stats are, it sounds like obviously these kids are 16, 17, 18 years old, so they're still growing. He might actually be 6'3", 300 pounds, and he might be that whenever he shows up on campus later. I guess if he early enrolls or later into 2023, he might be that big then. I do agree. We did have the idea that it would have been maybe a lot of these kids would have been earlier contributors, coming in with Brent Venables. We thought that maybe that was going to be the way. Definitely wasn't though. And I agree that he probably projects as a year 2, year 3 kind of guy. But there is a chance that he comes in and he does contribute immediately. There always is. And there's going to be a lot of holes and gaps that need to be filled with this graduating class of defensive linemen coming up. So a guy that definitely fills a role and a need, and something that OU desperately needs is a true nose tackle. And he is a true nose tackle. He can play all over, but he can definitely play the nose tackle position. That was part of the problem with Oklahoma running a 3 defensive linemen or 3 down defensive linemen. No one was truly a nose tackle that was ready to play. And I think they're trying to do that because I think Alton Tarber, you brought him up, could be that as well. And they're trying to fill that void down the line. Another commit that OU picked up on the 21st, so Monday. They picked up Ashton Sanders on the 20th, which is Sunday, picked up Taylor Wine, I believe that's how you say his name, on the 21st, which is Monday. 2023 3-star edge player from Nolensville, Tennessee. So Oklahoma goes into the Rocky Top State and goes into Tennessee's backyard and pulls Taylor Wine, 6'5", 235 pounds. He's an edge player, and he committed to Oklahoma, pretty quickly, just like Taylor or like Ashton Sanders. He was a recent offer by Oklahoma, and he really started to pick up a bunch of offers recently. He picked up a November 9th offer from Oklahoma, and then on that same day, he picked up an offer from Virginia Tech, USC, and then the next day, Ole Miss, then Missouri, then Cincinnati, Kentucky, Oklahoma State. So his recruiting has exploded in recent memory. And then Oklahoma was able to be one of the first big time programs to offer him. And I think that's what it really boiled down to is, they identified him first, got him on campus and locked him down. It seems like everyone's kind of a little late to the party, including Oklahoma, but they were one of the early ones to identify him.
The outside of his talent and what he did the senior year, because clearly what got him all these looks here late was how well he performed his last year at high school. That's clearly something that the coaches looked at, the jump he made from junior to senior year. But he 247 had an article on him. I think it was either earlier today or late last night, kind of describing, they had some quotes from him and describing how the process all went for him. He mentioned, like you said, earlier this year, beginning of senior year, he didn't have any Power 5 offers. beginning of the month or late October, he started getting all these offers from major universities. Outside of Oklahoma being the first one to offer, the toughness that this kid has and belief in himself that he could play at the highest level of college football, I think is something that the coaches really would like about him. From what we're all learning about this coaching staff, they want guys that are winners, guys that believe in themselves, have the confidence, and are also very coachable and are willing to get better. That's exactly what this kid is. He took a huge jump from junior to senior year, at least enough where he started getting recognized by big programs, and he has that belief in himself. He in the article he said he knew that he could compete at the biggest level, and it was just a matter of patience, trusting in God, and it worked out for him. And that's huge, especially at the college level, going into a big program. More than likely, as a freshman, no matter how highly rated or highly recruited you are, you're probably not going to make an impact as a freshman at any program. And knowing that he needs to come in and work is going to be important for him, because if he can work his tail off from the moment he arrives on campus to beginning of the season or whenever he gets his top opportunity next fall, that means it was well earned, and he's done everything that the coach has asked for. I mean, it could be kind of like an R. Mason Thomas situation. Not that he's that exact same player, but a guy that knew that he had to come in and put a lot of work in to get on the field and did it. And we've seen R. Mason. He was probably the best pass rusher with the edge guys. I mean, Reggie Grimes had a really good start to the year, but ended up falling off. Ethan Downs didn't really have an amazing year rushing the passer. But when R. Mason was healthy and on the field, he was pretty good at getting to the quarterback.
R. Mason Thomas definitely is one of the bright spots in this, I guess, early returns in this 2022 class. And something that Venables has said, and I think I read, was that Venables challenged his staff to go identify underrated guys that for one reason or another are not getting the looks that maybe they should in a normal scenario. Maybe they were injured, maybe they really came around the last 6 games of their season. And I feel like that's what they're doing right now to secure and pick up these guys that are a little lower ranked, with when a lot of schools have moved on to the 24 class and the 25 class. And they're circling back around and identifying talent late in the cycle, just like they did with R. Mason Thomas. And there's going to be other guys that we might not think are day one contributors or early contributors, like an R. Mason Thomas. Taylor Wine might be that. Ashton Sanders might be that. You don't have to be that highly rated to contribute day one, because it's going to be a true open competition for these guys. And the fact that they were able to identify, offer early enough, and then get him to commit within a couple weeks of receiving an offer, I think speaks well to what Oklahoma is doing right now. And I know people are like 3-star you, whatever. I don't care if we're recruiting 25 3-stars, but if they come in and they can produce and they play at a high level, I'd rather take hardworking guys that might be underrated and can win football games than a bunch of 5-stars that require a ton of NIL money, and then they don't care, like Texas A&M.
Yeah, I agree. And I got into, it wasn't really much, it wasn't an argument, but I was trying to understand, because like you said, a criticism, even from the fan base, the OU fan base, and clearly from haters, is that right now Oklahoma is 3-star U. First of all, Oklahoma doesn't even have that many 3-stars when you go down the line and compare us to other major programs, not just to every college university. We definitely have a decent amount, but there's others with more. 2, a criticism is that these 3-stars can't be elite players. And that doesn't make any sense to me, because regardless of the rating, it's tough for anyone to say, yeah, that is an elite player impact day one. There's definitely guys out there that have those attributes and the athleticism to be that. Like I said, for the most part, freshmen aren't day one impact players, no matter their position. We've seen it. It's not a hot take. I mean, look at college football. For the most part, the winning programs are usually the most experienced in regards to play time. I mean, Alabama, for the most part, their roster is made up of sophomores and juniors and some seniors. Georgia, juniors, sophomores, seniors. Like, they don't have a ton of freshmen on the field. And if they do, it's a freshman that is blowing everyone out of the water, or blowing a lot of people out of the water at their position group, which you get those every once in a while. But to have that expectation of every 5-star player, every high 4-star player is only going to put you as a fan in a position where you're probably going to be disappointed that they're not on the field day one. And two, it's a lot of pressure for the player as well, because they have a lot to learn when they get to college. Like I said last time with Jackson Arnold, getting used to college, no matter how organized the football team tries to make their day, it is still an adjustment they have to make. And every kid has to go through that. Some make it quicker than others. And it just really depends on the kid and how quickly they do.
Not everyone can be Harold Perkins for LSU.
Yeah.
I mean, that guy's a freak.
Yeah. I mean, look at A&M. They had 6 5-stars or however many, and they played, and some of them played well, but clearly not well enough to get them to be a good program. Like, it takes time.
It definitely does. Having lower expectations as far as contributing day one will set fans up to be pleasantly surprised. That's what my expectations have been. I have a high expectations down the line in 2 to 3 years, but if they pop up year one, like our Mason Thomas popping up year one, that was awesome. Danny Stutzman popping up, that was awesome. Would have never thought that either one of those guys would have been contributing as early as they did. So if you just let the guys show up on campus, and you know what, maybe a couple of these kids aren't great enough to play, and then they'll end up transferring. I mean, they're just going to give them an opportunity to play, and that's all you can really do at the end of the day. And maybe they'll realize that they don't feel like they belong, and then they go find another place to play. And that's what's going to happen with this transfer portal. Not to get off on a tangent, but Texas A&M, they lost one of their first guys to the transfer portal, and I feel like it's an avalanche that might be ensuing here pretty soon with them.
Yep.
So now those are 2 recent commits for Oklahoma. I believe that brings their total commitment count to 21, I believe. 21
22.
Or 22. 22 commits. And another one that could be joining the fold, and by the time you're watching this video, maybe by the time it's out, another guy that we think that could commit in the near future is Kendall Dolby. Kendall Dolby, 5'11", 180-pound corner from NEO, Northeastern Oklahoma A&M in Miami, Oklahoma. It's a JUCO. He's got offers from Oklahoma, Washington State, Oklahoma State, Washington, Arkansas. He's got reputable offers and legitimate Power 5 offers that he's picked up recently. Now I am looking at his 247 profile. He did pick up an offer from Washington, the Huskies, and he's got an official visit scheduled with them on December 9th. So maybe he won't commit before, but I just feel like he's the most logical one to commit. And maybe he won't make it to his official visit with Washington. What do you think?
Yeah, I know that he seems like the most likely guy, right? Coming out of Bedlam, we saw that huge rush of Cristobal's from these 2 guys that have committed in Wine and Sanders. We saw a few for Dolby, and we even saw 2 for Nigel Smith. So could it be the first 2024 guy? Potentially, but it doesn't seem likely given, as we've mentioned multiple times, Venable's recruiting philosophy. More than likely won't start getting those, probably till later on. It's a possibility. I just wouldn't expect it. Dolby seems like the most likely candidate and potentially canceling that official visit in a couple of weeks. But we'll see. This recruiting stuff is going to start to ramp up a lot. The regular season is about to end, and schools are about to put all their time and effort into recruiting, even the ones that have made bowl games.
And that's the truth. It's going to start ramping up like crazy. And I think football, the early signing day is at December 21st. I was 21st. Okay.
I think they have to like the 23rd.
Yeah, the 23rd. Yeah. So most kids will sign on the 21st. And that's another reason why you should subscribe to this channel, because I feel like we're going to be putting out a lot of content and a lot of good content, because it's going to be hectic going into it to close this year out, really. And I think another important component on these younger guys, and something kind of tying this all together with the regular season, is now that Oklahoma's made a bowl, they're going to have another like 15 practices, I think, or something like that, to prepare for whoever they play in the bowl game. And I think that's going to be critical because you're going to have a few guys that are going to opt out, transfer out, and you're going to have the ability to evaluate what you have on campus today. And you're going to be able to realize what we need, what we don't need, and then be able to go into the transfer portal or offer a late bloomer like an Ashton Sanders or a Taylor Wine at that specific position you need. So I think OU not only making a bowl game is a big deal just in general, but having 3 extra weeks or 15 more practices to evaluate is critical as we're going into this transfer portal, because OU's bound to lose a handful of guys and OU's bound to pick up a few guys. So I just thought I'd throw that thought in there that it's critical that OU made the bowl game, and I'm glad that they did. Because Kendall Dolby could come in and be a contributor. Like, he's the type of guy that could be coming in as a day one starter for Oklahoma, potentially, or a contributor early, because he picked up, I did see that he was Defensive Player of the Year 2022 and at the JUCO level. So obviously he can play. And he recently picked up an offer from Mississippi State as well. Do you have any more thoughts on what I said or Kendall Dolby or anything before we move on?
Yeah, that point that you brought up about when the transfer portal opens, Steve Wiltfong put out a tweet earlier today. We're recording this on Tuesday. It was kind of a message to recruits in general, especially in this class. If you're planning to sign early, you want to get that commitment locked in with the school here in about a week or so, because the transfer portal opens up on the 5th of December. Once that happens, a lot of schools will start to put a few more work into the transfer portal if they need more immediate impact players. Clearly, you're going to have your highly rated guys and top priority players still at the high school level that schools are going to go after. But if you're a guy that, may or may not have a spot depending on how the school is, that may be a spot that you lose out on if they start focusing on transfer portal. I don't think Oklahoma is going to be one of those schools, but there's a lot of schools that will focus more on transfer portal than they will on high school recruiting. Also, it will, on the other side, open up some spots at schools, maybe like in Oklahoma, where Brent Venables, while he probably will take advantage of the transfer portal to bring in some depth, or Clemson, a place that also is not a huge fan of the transfer portal, they're going to open up some spots because they may see a couple people leave through the transfer portal, and then they're going to have a couple more scholarships they can offer. So, there's a balance there, right? Depending on the school and where you're offered at, the recruits have to take that into perspective. But there's going to be schools where your spot might get filled by a transfer guy, and there might be schools that you get offered here and super late because they have a couple scholarships open up because they had a guy enter the transfer portal. And over the last month, we've started seeing guys opt out of their season and take a red shirt. Today, Trey Sanders from Alabama, he was one of the best running backs in his class, declared that he was going to enter the transfer portal when it opened. So no matter how big or small the program is, you're probably going to see a couple guys get into that transfer portal where either open up spots or close up some spots, depending on the school that these recruits are looking at.
And that's true. I mean, it's the name of the game, where if you're not that highly rated and you're kind of giving the runaround to different schools, they're going to look for a guy that wants to play for them. And if it's in the transfer portal and that person commits before, I mean, that's just the way it goes. It's just like the 2024 quarterback spot. It's whoever commits first for Oklahoma, and that's going to be the guy. It doesn't matter, if it's Lagway or Michael Hawkins, which I don't think it's going to be DJ Lagway, but I'm not 100% sure. But he's actually locked in to announce his commitment here pretty soon, right?
Sometime in like early December. I can't remember the specific date, but yeah. And
December 7th.
I'm pretty sure it's not going to be Oklahoma. We'd probably have gotten would have gotten a feeling on where that on if that was even a possibility. Looking at recruiting platforms, it looks like A&M is a leader there. USC, I saw like 3 weeks ago before he did make that announcement that he was gonna the announcement of his announcement. Um, that USC is going to be a school to beat out for his commitment. So, I mean, we'll see. I guess anything can happen over this next week and a half before he makes that announcement to the verbal commitment. But Oklahoma doesn't seem like the likely landing spot for DJ.
No, yeah, not to get off on a sidetrack there, but yeah, it's I don't get the feeling that Oklahoma's in a great spot. I mean, they're fine, they're there, but I just don't think they're the final landing spot. All right, so going back to the 2023 class, this weekend there, or I guess it was Sunday or maybe Monday. Peyton Bowen. I mean, we've talked about him for months now. 2023 5-star Peyton Bowen from Geyer High School. Denton Geyer with Jackson Arnold, teammates with him. Picked up a flip for a crystal ball flip to Oklahoma by, I think it was Nick Harris with Rivals. So Nick Harris is a pretty reputable guy in this area, or, in this North Texas, Oklahoma region. And he flipped his crystal ball from Notre Dame to Oklahoma. And with him doing that and kind of reading between the lines, posts, and his girlfriend posted them hanging out at the game. He reposted on his Instagram. For some reason, I guess, last week I was kind of just saying I'm kind of over this. I don't think Peyton Bowen's going to be a Sooner. The more I've thought about it, and the more, thinking back even last year with Lincoln Riley, where there's smoke, there's fire. And it's just like when Lincoln Riley was, getting all these reports coming out that he's going to go coach at LSU or whatever, and then ultimately went to USC. And Peyton Bowen keeps telling Notre Dame that he's locked in. He's all about the Fighting Irish. But the thing is if you continue to show up and visit like school more than you visited the school that you're committed to this fall. He went to OU way more than he went to Notre Dame. I don't know. Where there's smoke, there's fire, in my opinion. And you keep showing up and you keep just talking to Oklahoma. I'm not saying he's going to commit tomorrow or anything like that. But he might be one of those guys that he might just throw the hat on National Signing Day, and that just might be what happens, just like what DJ Hicks did. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I said it last week when we mentioned him. This recruitment is nowhere near its conclusion. 4 months since the beginning of the summer, he's been close to making a decision, his final decision on where he was going to attend school and continue his football career and his academics. That was back in late May, early June. We are almost in December. Thanksgiving is tomorrow. Like there's a lot of things that he's trying to work through himself. Right now, he's clearly focused on his high school championship, the playoff run that they're trying to make to win state this year. I think it was earlier in the month, or late last month. On3 put out an article about him wanting to have this decision finalized for himself before the state championship game. That is on the 17th of December. If he's still holding himself to that deadline, we're about 2.5 weeks away from learning what his decision is going to be. If he's going to wait until the National Signing Day on the 21st or 22nd, whenever he and the Geyer guys decide to put pen to paper, and we're about 3 weeks away. I mean, this is going to be a while, and yeah, it does seem like it's really a battle between Oklahoma and Notre Dame. I know A&M is still trying to recruit him. Texas is trying to get back in terms of recruitment. It's going to be tough for them to really make up all the ground that they've lost on. Oklahoma's got a lot of things in their favor. He's still committed to Notre Dame. A&M, as we all know, has the bags to just throw around to kids if that is the kid's priority, number one priority, or if it's just so much money blows them away and they can't turn it away. Peyton Bowen, really, I think it is between Oklahoma and Notre Dame. And it really seems to be just who makes the best case for themselves, either in a bowl game or with relationships he's building, because the Notre Dame board was going absolutely insane on Monday when those flip the future cast from the Rivals guys started coming in. It was hilarious, but he's still committed there. Like, there's a reason for them to be for Notre Dame insiders and Notre Dame fans to still be pretty confident that he's going to stick to Notre Dame. I mean, after his visit from the Clemson game, he seemed to be really excited about it. But Oklahoma's making every single case they can, pulling all the strings they can to make sure that they are going to be number one in the place that he ends up attending come whenever school starts in January, because I believe he's going to be an early enrollee. I know Jackson is, so I would assume he is as well.
Yeah, and I don't know. It would be hard for me to be still going if I were him going through the process and not knowing where I was going to be come January. Like that's just not how I operate. And I know some people that doesn't bother them, but I think that would drive myself insane. I need to make a decision and make my mind up.
Well, apparently his mom is like super pro Notre Dame, and his dad is also pro Notre Dame, but he's really likes Oklahoma as well. His best friend's at Oklahoma, his girlfriend's at Oklahoma, like you mentioned, but he's committed to Notre Dame. And who's he going to go with, mom or girlfriend? That's the dilemma a lot of men have to go through. Well, you got to pick a side sometimes, and it's a tough battle mentally to have to fight that.
Well, and the question could be, could mom be also pro Notre Dame because maybe she doesn't want him to be close to his current girlfriend? Well, I'm not saying that, but you know that some relationships are like, coming out of high school, like parents are like, hey, you need to go elsewhere,
do your own thing.
Yeah, do your own thing.
He doesn't like her, just more like go do your own thing, explore the world by yourself. But we're not speculating that mom doesn't like girlfriend. We're just saying that that's a tough thing for him to have to go through right now. Clearly, there's a lot going on with him, plus high school football still going on, and with Geyer really making that stretch, like I mentioned. Like, I don't expect any decision coming from him anytime soon. Like I said, if he holds himself to that December 17th deadline before the state championship game, we're not very far from learning what his decision is.
Yeah. It's just, I'm ready for it to be over. I do feel like that Oklahoma could ultimately end up winning this one out. And, you visit a place a dozen times. It's hard for me to imagine that you're not going to end up picking that place in the end. And your best friend, your girlfriend, I mean, everything that we've talked about. It's just hard, but he's obviously torn, because if he wasn't torn, this would have already been done. So,
yes.
Anyway, so, I mean, that's a lot of recruiting talk, and I know we didn't talk a whole lot about David Hicks. And again, I think David Hicks is going to be the guy. Could be like Peyton Bowen. It could be Peyton Bowen and David Hicks could be 2 5-stars that we have no idea what's going to happen come National Signing Day, and they could very well throw the Oklahoma hat on National Signing Day, and that's it. Because honestly, if I were in their shoes at this point, that's what I would do.
Yeah, just milk it too. Like, even if you do have you decided, or you verbally silently committed to the staff, milk that shit, because you're going to have fans from all the schools that you're looking at going to be showing you a lot of love, boosting your follower account on social media, which at the end of the day, that's what NIL was intended to do, is to try to get brands to endorse these players. And if they have a large following, that helps them get those NIL deals from non-collective brands to endorse them.
Yeah. So anyway, a lot of recruiting talk. I think Oklahoma's recruiting is just heating up, and I think that they're going to close out strong, and I think they're going to do well in the transfer portal. And I think Oklahoma fans are going to be happy the way that this recruiting cycle ended, or ends, I guess. I think it'll be strong. All right. So there's an actual game that we need to discuss. The second to last game that Oklahoma will play this year, counting the bowl game. OU goes on the road at Texas Tech. Both schools come in, both at 6-5. OU's going on the road, playing at night in Lubbock. Weird things happen at night. That's the only thing that I don't like. I wish we were playing at 11 o'clock just because tortillas start flying and weird things start happening out in Lubbock on a Saturday night. Granted, now OU doesn't have the target on their back just because they're not playing for a playoff spot, but it is still Oklahoma, and I know that Texas Tech has been circling this game like every other team does in the Big 12. Oklahoma comes in, coming off a win, Bedlam. Texas Tech's coming off they've got a 2-win streak going on right now, beat Kansas and Iowa State last week. Both come in 6-5, looking to finish the season off strong. I just got to ask, what's your initial takeaway? I mean, Texas Tech did lose a key contributor on the defense in Tyree Wilson. He has declared that he's foregoing his senior season and will go into the draft, so he will not be playing for Tech, and that's probably their best defender. What do you think?
Well, that helps the offense because they've struggled a boatload. The most intimidating thing about this game is that it's in Lubbock. I think a very good argument can be made that this is the hardest place to play at in the Big 12, being on the road. Texas Tech loves playing at home. They've only lost one game at home this year. It's tough. Not easy to play there. Their fans always show up. Like you said, they have tortillas flying. It's a hostile environment for every visiting team. The defense, I think, is going to be able to manage that. The offense is where it's weird to say, but the offense might be the one struggling. And they need to break that third down issue that they've had over the last 2 games. The good thing for the defense that there doesn't seem to be like a stud or a couple studs that shine every single game for Texas Tech. They have all around a good football team that plays well together, especially at home. And like with Tyree not playing for the defense, I think that helps the offense a little bit, but they have to put it together. At this point, I feel pretty confident the defense playing well and giving the offense opportunities. It's can the offense capitalize on the opportunities they get? And it seems like Lebby realized that kids that have played Madden's forever know how to clock manage, and he needed to figure that out last week, and he didn't. Probably something he's going to emphasize this week is when to play with tempo and when to back off a little bit. So, I mean, right now Oklahoma's 2.5-point favorites. It started at 1.5, I believe, when the line first opened. So, it seems like there's probably a lot of money going to Oklahoma. Would not surprise me if it's a very close game to the very end. But I think Oklahoma can win. Key is we got to score a lot of points. This is going to be a shootout if we're going to win. Or the defense is going to have to play another near perfect game like they did against Oklahoma State. Because Texas Tech's offense, outside of one game, has scored over 35 points every time at home.
They are definitely explosive, and they like the comforts of playing from home. And I do agree the most daunting thing is going on the road. And what I'm concerned about Oklahoma going out there is they're coming off an emotional win in a rivalry game in Bedlam, going on the road at night in Lubbock, where Texas Tech plays better at home. It just sounds like a recipe for disaster with this team. I don't think they're going to lose. I don't think OU is going to lose. OU's a 2-point favorite and a little, sneak peek. I'm going to take OU -2. I do think it's going to be close. I don't think it's going to be a blowout one way or another. Texas Tech's best defender, I guess, now is Josiah Pierre. He's played well. He's up to 4.5 sacks recently. He's really started to tear it up against TCU and Kansas. He started playing well. So he's a guy that Oklahoma's going to have to block. He's a linebacker, junior, number 8. So watch out for number 8 when you're watching on your TV or if you're at the game. I'm hopeful that this offense will show up and Lebby will get the ball rolling. But part of me also thinks with this offense and where Lebby's at, I feel like he's overthinking. He's not confident in what he's calling, what the players are doing. I feel like he's just second guessing everything that he's doing, and he's not, like, his initial gut isn't working, and then he's trying to keep the tempo, and then he's trying to. It just seems like nothing's easy. When you look at this offense, you feel like it has to go. Everything has to be perfect, and then they get a 5-yard penalty or a 10-yard penalty. It feels like that drive's done at that point. Like, there's no way that Oklahoma's going to pick up a 2nd and 20. That's just kind of the feeling I get. It's just, sometimes every now and then you'll get a Marvin Mims or Jalil Farouk, but I feel like the momentum gets killed and then it's over, and they can't bounce back from it. I don't know.
Well, and Oklahoma's going to need to beat Eric Gray, beat the number one option on the offense. The only game Texas Tech has lost at home was against Baylor, and Richard Reese went off for 148 yards on 36 carries, 3 touchdowns. They had Blake Shapen. He ran for 30 yards. Their backup running back, because Squirrel Williams, I think, was still hurt at that time, went with 8 carries for 38 yards and a touchdown. So the running game was efficient. It's going to be the story of, can Oklahoma finally put enough drives together to win time of possession? If we can win time of possession, we can win this game. If it's the same thing that we've seen over the last 2 games, where a lot of 3 and outs, no matter how good the defense plays, we're going to be in a spot where the offense can kind of lose the game for us. This game could get very ugly very quickly if we can run the ball and keep this, because Baylor had 40 minutes to 20 minutes time of possession that game. I don't think Oklahoma can do that. They haven't proven they can even keep the ball for 30. But if we can, be 50-50 with them, I like our chances.
I was just about to say, even just setting a goal of 30 minutes, have it for half the time and keep that defense off the field. The defense played extremely well against Oklahoma State, and they were on the field forever. Think about if they had 2 less possessions, they had to go out there. They're going to be that much better, in my opinion. And, Texas Tech gives up 162 yards rushing, 228 yards passing. They give up 391 yards a game compared to Oklahoma's 437 yards per game. A little bit of better statistically on defense from Tech, but they also throw up 447 yards per game in total offense. Definitely a little more heavy on the passing for them. It's just, can this offense sustain drives? And that's all I want. Feed Eric Gray. You've got a guy that's got over 1,200 receiving yards coming into this game. He's been terrific. Let him play. And I'm going to say it. This is his last game. We're going to see him in a Sooner uniform. I don't see him playing in the bowl game because he's got nothing left to prove in a bowl game that is not like a playoff game or even a New Year's Six bowl. This is going to be Eric Gray's last game, in my opinion. I don't have any information on that. I think you will see him forego the bowl. Let him eat and let him go out with a bang. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's hold the ball for 30. Can we get to 32 minutes? You don't need the tempo. And remember, if we need to kill clock, you can just knee it, kneel down 3 times and then punt. It's going to be okay. We'll have more time of possession that way. But, just feed Eric Gray, be conscious of be aware of the situation and be able to kill the clock when you need to. I want to see him run the ball. I don't even care if Gabriel doesn't even throw the ball. Can they run the ball and eat the clock?
Well, I get what you're saying. Another thing, the situational awareness thing has been lacking the last couple games. They don't. It's understanding when to play with tempo. And I know Venables mentioned when he first hired Lebby that he loves how quickly he runs his offense, but he also mentioned you got to know when to push that accelerator and when to back off the gas. And that's something that Lebby's learning, and clearly he did not do a great job of executing that versus Oklahoma State. But I think he'll be able to turn it around this game. He's a good offensive coordinator. Before this, let's look back to when he got hired at first. as a fan base, we were comparing his offense to Lincoln Riley's offense and saying that his offense was significantly better because he competed in the SEC, was producing top 5 level offenses. He doesn't suck. He knows what he's doing. He's still learning clearly to be the guy that, because Venables doesn't seem to really be putting too much input because he wants Levy to run the offense by himself for the most part. He might help with some game planning and gives his input because he is the head coach, but it seems like Levy's the leader, the sole leader for the most part of the offensive unit, and he's learning how to navigate that. Run the ball. That's going to be the key. They're definitely going to need to take some shots because you need Dylan Gabriel to stay in rhythm. As soon as you run the ball way too much is when you start seeing Dylan Gabriel do what we mentioned in the last video. He's going to Brett Favre the shit out of that ball and just going to throw it 90 miles an hour to a check down, 90 miles an hour on a rope to on a 50-yard pass when he needs to have some finesse on his passes. Keep him in rhythm. Keep a good dose of the running game in the game just to make sure that you have a good time of possession and find a way to keep Dylan in rhythm. We've kind of gone away from some play action when I think this defense or this offense can really benefit from it with how good the running game can be. So hopefully we see a little bit more of that.
I do agree. I mean, I say I don't care if Dylan Gabriel doesn't throw, but of course you definitely need that balance because early in the season, it felt like all Levy was doing was running. Against like Kent State, I think it was where it was just 3 and out, 3 and out, and 3 and out, and because they were just running the ball, and we just thought that because the offense wasn't fully installed at that point. So yeah, you need the balance, and I agree. The play action is critical. If you run it twice and you're picking up 3-4 yards of carry, and then you hit them with a play action, how things get open. And I will say Marvin Mims is how difficult and how frustrating of a year he's been having because of the quarterback play and the offensive play. He's in line to have 1,000+ yards this year if you count the bowl game. He's at 47 catches, 844 yards, and 4 touchdowns. He could have 100+ and could be knocking on the door 1,000 before even the bowl game even happens. So as difficult as it's been, and people have been down on Marvin Mims, which, yeah, he's had a few drops, whatever. He's still putting together a pretty solid season despite all the dysfunction on the offense.
Wide receivers need to get this dropsy thing in order. That's not on the coach. The coach can't show you how to not drop the ball. You're a wide receiver at this level of football because you've shown you can catch the ball. Get rid of that. Try to get off of that. Gain some confidence. Do whatever you have to do. Stop dropping the ball.
Go to the jugs machine.
Yeah.
I mean, that's also part of it is why OU's offense has not been great. Is there's been a lot of drops, a lot of things that it's like we've got the players in the right position to make the play, and then they don't make the play. It's like there's only so much you can do. So, I mean, looking at it, I think OU's going to be able to run the ball. They're going to be able to pass the ball. It's just a matter of can they do it time again, time and keep doing it every single time, or I guess majority of the time. You can't score on every drive, but can they just be successful quarters 1 through 4, play solid defense? Can they put together a full 4-quarter performance? I don't know if they can. I know they're capable, but I kind of feel like what's going to end up happening is OU might either get off to a slow start or a hot start, and then whatever they do in the beginning, it'll be the total opposite, and they'll either hold on for the win or come back for the win at Texas Tech. I don't know if they're going to be able to put together a full 4 quarters.
They're going to need to play from ahead because if they are trying to play from behind in Lubbock, it's going to be impossible.
Yeah. So, do you have a score prediction since this is our last video of the week?
I didn't check. Let me check the over under. You go first.
The over under on this game is 64. But if I'll go first, I'm going to say 37-31 Oklahoma.
Yeah, I like where we at because it's going to have to go over. If Oklahoma wins, we need to score a lot. So I think Oklahoma wins 42-32.
All right. So we both think the over is going to hit. So Both think OU is going to cover the 2. We both think that the over is going to hit. So that segues us right into our bets. Coming into this week, I'm 37, 31, and 1, and you are
45, 37, and 1.
45, 37, and 1. Okay. So we both each have 8 bets. I already hinted at one. I took OU -2, and I assume you took OU -2 in one of your bets because your score prediction.
Go ahead and add the over for me. I didn't write it down, so I actually have 9, but
Okay.
Oklahoma and the over.
All right. Then I'll roll into my next one. Will be Ohio State and Michigan. We'll start off with that one. Michigan goes on the road into Columbus, into the Horseshoe. Both teams did not look great. Haven't looked perfect coming into this game. Obviously, Michigan escaped against Illinois. Ohio State, didn't look great against Maryland. I think Ohio State puts it together, -7.5. It's going to be a great rivalry game, a great game to watch. I just think Ohio State has too much talent for Michigan to keep up, but Michigan's tough enough that they could. You know what I'm saying? Like they're gritty enough and they got enough talent. I just think Michigan has been skating by for way too long. Their out of conference scheduling has been horrendous, and I don't think they're a top 3 team in the country.
There's a chance they still get into the playoffs, even if they lose. They would need some help, but they've got a chance. I'm on the same game. I'm not picking a winner on the spread. I'm just going to take the over. I did a quick Google search. Over the last 10 years, the lowest point total in that game was 41. Second lowest was 56, if I remember correctly. Most of the time, they score well over 60. I think 3 years ago, they ended up scoring 101 combined. So it's a high-scoring affair. I'm taking the over. Point total is 58.5. My prediction on I see this game going 2 ways. Either it's going to be really close where they're trading touchdowns, or Blake Corum isn't healthy, doesn't get to play for Michigan, and Ohio State, CJ Stroud is going to end up winning the Heisman. Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to put his name in a very good lead for the Biletnikoff Award, and they just run away with it, score a boatload of points, help me out on the over. So I think the over is probably the safest bet of the weekend.
That's fair. I'm excited for that game. I'm going to definitely be tuning in for that one. My next one's going to be Notre Dame and USC. Notre Dame goes on the road at USC. USC right now is a 5.5 point favorite. There's not much of a home field advantage for the Trojans. I think USC's been skating by for so long, and not that Notre Dame's had a terrific season by any means, but they are playing better football as of late. Marcus Freeman seems to have kind of figured it out. They played well against Boston College. Granted, it's not been great competition, but they have put together a couple top 25 wins in this 5-game win streak. I think they go on the road at USC. They might not win, but it's going to be like a 3-point game. So I'm taking Notre Dame plus 5.5.
And Notre Dame did hold Ohio State to their lowest score point total of the year, game 1. So their defense might be able to keep that pretty close. My next game is my weekly bet. Iowa under. This week is not setting a record of the lowest point total ever. It is 38.5. Last week was 32.5, and they managed to score less than that with their opponent. So I think their defense is going to give Nebraska enough issues that no one's gonna score in this game. It might even go to overtime, 0-0, and we'll be watching that game forever, or not, because it's gonna suck.
It's going to suck. And something I'll also add about that Notre Dame USC game. USC's coming off an emotional win, a battle of LA type deal, and that was a true battle. I just feel like for them to get up, and this is another rivalry, I just feel like there might be a little bit of a hangover there for USC, but I might be totally wrong. My next one will be Clemson, South Carolina, another rivalry game. That's why the last weekend in November is always a good weekend to watch football. Clemson, South Carolina. I'm taking Clemson minus 14 and a half. I think Clemson knows that they need to have some style points in this game, and then the ACC championship game, they're going to have to be ready to play. And I think that I don't know if LSU runs the table. I don't think that Michigan or Ohio State, whoever loses, will get in over an ACC champion like Clemson. There is a chance that TCU does lose. Clemson is still very much alive since Tennessee is out of the picture. And I think USC is not truly a top 4 team because of their defensive issues. I think Clemson sees this as an opportunity. Dabo Swinney knows how to rally the troops. I think they come out and take care of South Carolina. And South Carolina just played their best game of the year. It's tough to play your best game two weeks in a row.
Yeah, I agree. Clemson does need to get those style points this weekend on that game. I'm going to take the over. I don't trust the Clemson offense enough to take them. What were they, 14 and a half point favorites or something like that? So I don't trust them quite enough to do that, especially with South Carolina coming off an explosive offensive game. I think the over should hit here. So that's where I'm at with this game. I do hope that Clemson runs the table here and is able to get into the playoffs, because we're we are now seeing what the rest of the country has been saying about Oklahoma during the Lincoln Riley era. They're not a playoff team. They are very fun to watch offensively, but they're very likely to get run in the playoffs, like Lincoln Riley has with at his time at Oklahoma. The defense just is not good enough to win big time games.
Definitely. They can't get off the field when they have to. I mean, they gave up 45 points to UCLA and barely won. I mean, that sounds familiar.
Yeah. I mean, the one bright spot for USC right now that we did not have during our championship games was Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams might be the most surefire quarterback to go into an NFL draft, like a Trevor Lawrence or an Andrew Luck in recent history.
Oh, I 100% agree. You know, any team in the NFL for next year needs a quarterback. You better tank. I mean, because he's the real deal. As much as people might not like him on this channel, you can't deny it. Going back to the Big 12, Baylor and Texas. Baylor goes on the road at Texas. Texas came off a win that they took care of Kansas, no issue. You know, they didn't want to be a part of the memes again where Texas loses to Kansas. Baylor lost in a heartbreak fashion against Texas Christian. Currently, Texas is an 8.5 point favorite. And I think that Baylor will cover that. They might flat out win because Texas is up and down. It's a roller coaster. And Baylor is not that bad of a team. They obviously beat Oklahoma. I just don't trust Texas. And I learned my lesson. You know, I said when they played TCU, I said, you know, they're going to flop. This isn't a primetime game, but I feel like they're going to flop. And I just think that Texas is going to finish 7-5.
I hope you're right. My next game is I'm actually going to go back to the Iowa game. Since I took the under, I'm also taking Nebraska plus 10.5. There's no fucking way that this game gets covered by Iowa. I don't know why the sports book, maybe they're getting me. Maybe that's one of those games where it shouldn't be 10.5, so you should take the 10.5, but I'm not taking it. There's no way that that's going to happen.
Yeah. Staying in the Big Ten, Minnesota goes on the road at Wisconsin. Minnesota's coming off of a heartbreak loss against those Iowa Hawkeyes. Currently, Minnesota is a 3.5 point underdog going on the road at Madison. I like the Gophers here. I think the Gophers bounce back and they take care of business. It's traditional Big Ten style football. Wisconsin, Minnesota, 7-4, 6-5. You know, I just think that Minnesota is a pretty solid team, and I think they'll take care of them.
Agreed. My last game is Florida State, Florida. I was telling Brum, seems like in college football, rivalry games equal a lot of points. So I'm taking the over. Florida State has proven they can score a lot of points. Florida has also shown some signs of an explosive offense here and there. So I just feel like they're going to make it an entertaining game and hit the over there.
All right. I got two left. So Oregon State. Oregon goes on the road at the Beavers. Oregon bounced back last week after losing to Washington, and Oregon State's coming in 4-1 in their last 5 games. So they're both 4-1. So they're both playing some pretty solid football. I think Oregon just comes in. I think Bo Nix tries to put his stamp on this season to finish 10-2 after his horrendous start and their hiccup against Washington. I think that Oregon takes care of business -3. I think no big deal. And then my last one is Iowa State, TCU. TCU's hosting Iowa State. They're a 10-point favorite. Part of me thinks that it's Iowa State, maybe take +10, but it's one of those games that I think that TCU is going to bounce back and realize that they need to kind of have a tune-up game to get ready for the Big 12 championship. I think they take care of Iowa State, beat them by 14 or so, and score a lot of points, because in the last 2 games they haven't looked their best. And actually, when you look at it, honestly, it's all been close. I just think that they're going to be able to overpower. I don't think Iowa State's going to be able to really keep up, because this is probably the best offense in the Big 12. And Iowa State's been playing teams that don't have great offenses, including Oklahoma.
Yeah. So I actually missed one. My last one is Alabama-Auburn rivalry game. Point total is 49.5. And I think Alabama's like 22-point favorites, 22.5. So if I think they cover that, it's at Alabama. Auburn kind of stinks. So they should be able to hit the over there.
All right. So that's everything. That as far as bets go, you had 9, I had 8. We're going to see who finishes strong. We'll definitely do a lot of bowl predictions, just because that's going to be a lot of fun, and we're going to be talking a lot of recruiting. So it's been over an hour. So the people that have been hanging out with us and watched this entire video, you're real for that. We really appreciate it. Do you have any final thoughts or anything like that?
No, I mean, shout out if you did watch this entire thing in one sitting. I probably would assume a couple of you guys came back 1 or 2 times to try to finish this out. Like Brum said at the beginning, no Friday video, so kind of try to combine both of them in this video. In the video challenge, we talked about a ton, so I guess we'll do a couple here. Who do you think will be the next commitment if it hasn't been Dolby by the time that this video releases? And your lock of the weekend, because there's a lot of college football. You can even do pro football, because we got some good Thanksgiving games. Our teams are facing off Thursday night, and then we've got a couple good ones in the earlier part of the day on Thanksgiving. So a lot of sports to watch on this holiday weekend.
Definitely. And one thing I want to add here is, as we're going into in the next month, we're finishing this recruiting cycle, or early National Signing Day. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to be tweeting things that they know, things that they have insider information. Well, hey, my friend is a big donor, or I know someone who's a big donor and they know this, that, or whatever. And then also people that are tweeting on Twitter with blue check marks now, saying that they have information. Anyone can buy a Twitter subscription. Well, I guess whenever Elon Musk brings it back here in the next week. Don't trust everything that you see on Twitter or the message boards. There's going to be a lot of information going back and forth. So be sure to just get reputable sources before people start posting and freaking out and things like that. That's just some of my final thoughts there.
Yeah, agreed. It's recruiting. Don't trust just random people. And if you don't want to trust us, you don't have to. Hopefully we've done enough to gain your trust here, but you don't have to trust us if you don't want to. Stick to your insiders if that's what you choose to do.
Definitely. So just take things on Twitter with a grain of salt. But again, if you made it this far, you're real. It's over an hour. We really appreciate it. And if you did watch this entire video, you might as well like it. Do the end of video challenge. Subscribe to the channel. Turn the notification bell on. And remember, if you're already subscribed, when you like and you comment on the video, it helps us out a lot. And be sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Apple, and Spotify. You probably want to follow us on social media, especially since we're not going to be posting on Friday, because there might be some breaking news that comes out. And if we have to do an emergency podcast, we might. But like a DJ Hicks flip, I think we will post a video, but just be sure to find us on social media so you can keep up to date. All right. And we will catch you guys for a recap come Sunday.